The Bible says God has ordained the world's governments. See Romans 13. And even if an individual government is not ideal, they are there for a purpose, and we should not be engaged in overthrows and revolutions, but be subject to the powers to be. However, the Bible has blueprints to follow for most significant topics. When it comes to politics or economics, the world has their differing ideologies and systems, what they think is ethical, practical, or ideal. Communism, democracy, republic, fascism, liberalism, capitalism, etc. The Bible has politics too, and an outline for government as well. Just like there are outlines for rules for marriage, church, parenting, prayer, and how to treat your neighbor. So, what is the ideal government according to the Bible? If, hypothetically, a free group of people had no other government over them and an empty territory, not claimed by anyone, then what would be the government and system if they were to follow just the Bible, the ideal? First, when it comes to the political structure, it would be an invisible monarchy as a theocracy, with the invisible God as direct monarch, and his law as the law of the land, found in the Bible. See 1 Samuel chapter 8 verse 7, Judges 8:23, and Exodus 15:18. That means he would be the legislative branch. This means an unchanging law. Second, a visible critarchy that administers that law. See Deuteronomy 16:18, Exodus 18:13 to 26, and Deuteronomy 1 verse 9 to 18. That means rule of judges. They would be the judicial as well as the executive branch in an inquisitorial judicial system. And they would arbitrate in disputes between people and families, as well as punish crime. They would not really be a police force or standing army, but they had something called officers, which perhaps acted as assistants in arresting people, organizing trials, or pronouncing sentences, or be messengers. There would be no mayors, presidents, aristocracy, or senators. There would be no prisons also. The punishments ranged from capital punishment, lashes, restitution, to just rebukes. The judges would be segmented, meaning there would be lower courts and higher courts, and a national judge who took the most complicated cases. The more higher judges would also be a type of warlords in time of war, who rallied and led the militias. A general culture of obedience and authoritarianism would be expected. See Joshua 1 verses 16 to 18 and Deuteronomy 17 verses 10 to 13. But there are strict requirements for evidence and trials. See Deuteronomy 17:6 and Deuteronomy 19:15. And judges would not be above the law, and they could possibly also be accused themselves, and then other judges would take care of judging them if they were witnesses. Third, it would not be democracy, but there will be representative elders of large households who, after a discussion and consensus together, could select a wise leader to be judge over them if the previous died or need arose. See Judges 11 verses 6 to 11. Otherwise, the judges would arise spontaneously. There would not be any formalized elections or term limits. See Judges 10 verse 2 and 12 verse 7. Fourth, nationalism and tribalism. The system would apply to and be controlled by one people, the people who chose it, who chose God as their king voluntarily. It would not be an empire trying to expand and rule over other people, but the laws apply to anyone coming into and residing in the land. The nation would also be segmented into subgroups, tribes down to households, and this connects to the economic system. The economic rights as well as political duties would apply only to the native families and immigrants who have become fully integrated. Fifth, the economic system. The economic system would not be modern individualistic capitalism. The land, meaning its raw resources and means of production, especially forests and agricultural fields, would be equally distributed in a segmented fashion among the citizens through tribes, clans, and down to households. It would still be private property ownership, but every citizen household would hold a title and be guaranteed an equal plot to pass down through generations, protected and enforced by a jubilee system. If a family became unfortunate and had to sell their land, they would get it back every 50 years at the jubilee. So at least their sons had a chance to start over with a family farm, and there would not be an automatic perpetual intergenerational worker class created, where the few could have monopoly of the means of production and the masses were employed by them, beholden to their rule. This system could be best called distributism, or more specifically, tribal distributism, or otherwise Distributed collectivist family capitalism, if you will, to emphasize that it is not communism or government ownership of property, but also not modern free market capitalism, where individuals with money rule. Or it could simply be called the Jubilee system. See Leviticus 25 for all this. Sixth, there would be welfare for those without land especially. Deuteronomy 14:27-29. And for the poor, the widow, the fatherless, and immigrants. See Deuteronomy 24, verses 19-21. They could, by protection of law, freely enter any private orchard or field and eat the yield, just not gather in store baskets. See Leviticus 19:10 and Deuteronomy 23, verses 24-25. There would also be worker protections for those unfortunate enough to have lost their land temporarily and had to be workers, or immigrant workers. See Deuteronomy 24, verses 14-15, Leviticus 19:13, James 5, verse 4, Luke 10, verse 7, and 1 Timothy 5:18. A big part of welfare and poor relief would also be that the rich are required by law to be ready to give debt-free loans for fellow poor citizens. And all loans would even be cancelled every 7 years nationally. See Deuteronomy 15. The whole system is neither leftist nor right-wing, and is hard to classify into the world's philosophies and ideologies. Deuteronomy 5, verses 32 says, Ye shall observe to do therefore, as the Lord your God has commanded you. Ye shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. It is because it is very practical, but also God's ways are not of this world. But some of these elements can be found here and there in some of the world's ideologies. Isaiah 55 verse 8 says, For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. Psalm 19:7 says, The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. But again, this ideal system is not for everyone and every people. It is only for a people who believe in the God of the Bible and who can handle it or even want it. God allowed his own people to reject him as king in favor of a worldly monarchy similar to other nations around them. But the mentioned points would be the ideal system of government according to God's law.